Good morning traders, Joseph here from Eightcap. Welcome to this week's Asian session outlook. So we will just be skimming over and have a look at a few of the markets. Now unfortunately I've got a bit of sun up today and so it may be shining in my face a little bit, so sorry about that. Also, if I'm looking a bit more red than usual today, unfortunately I got a bit too much sun yesterday, so we do have pretty hot autumns here occasionally in Victoria, and I took the young fella surfing yesterday and I got way too much sun, so you probably will notice a bit of red areas. So it's not blush, it's just, yeah, a bit too much fun yesterday. So this morning so far we're seeing risk markets slightly lower. It's not too much of a surprise at this stage in the Asian session, and the ASX has come online, and this is after some good, some strong gains on Wall Street and on European markets to end last week. And we're seeing the ASX at the moment where it's 10.4 points higher. So we'll see if they can buyers can build on that. So we saw the Dow add 1.17%, the S&P gained 1.61%, and the NASDAQ led the charge. It gained 1.97% on Friday. So buyers are continuing to push on the ASX. So we've seen that lead increase now to 20.6 points. So stocks capped off a pretty solid end to the week. We saw this on Thursday with a pretty nice recovery. I think it was a little bit maybe unexpected at how firm it was on Friday. So there wasn't a heap of data, but there was some comments, and we can see here the German 30 is, it cleared above this level here, and it's getting very close now to testing those previous highs. And if we just have a look here, we're not that close to previous highs, but definitely this trend continues to push on, and we're starting to get there's roughly 4.17% away from previous highs. So if you have seen the DAX before, 4%, while it is a pretty decent figure, the DAX can pull numbers like that pretty quickly in a few days of trade. So the US30 as well, obviously we know it's been lagging a bit. We've seen once again it hold at this level of support here, and this is a pretty good little level now, so we'll continue to watch and see if that can be a base for buying. We've seen a nice push higher here on Friday. We're going to get into some of the drivers this week, and we think that they're going to be potentially big shapers. So the Dow still remains in a range, and we're not seeing too much direction. We are seeing a bounce off support, but it still has a pretty decent way to go before we get up to those levels, and we really need to see a break in this area to get this trend back on track. So this is a pretty long and drawn out consolidation at the moment. So that's the daily chart. Now one factor I wanted to watch this week will be the Aussie dollar. Now, rates are expected to go up by 25 basis points, but I think the RBA statement is what's going to be quite looked at this week. Now they have a couple of things to look at. So we had falling inflation and CPI last week, and then we had that disappointing jobs data. So it's going to be interesting to see what the RBA make of those two things, but combined with inflation that still sits at 7%, just above 7%. So will they change their outlook? Will we hear any rhetoric about the policies, possibly slowing down, or will we just see them continue on course to get inflation down? So I think I have spoken about this a little bit, but there has been a lot of pressure on the governor after some comments were made, and then with the spate of rate rises that we saw in 2022 and now into 2023. So it will be interesting to see what they have to say. Now this week is going to be a pretty big week data wise. So last week was a bit of a break. So coming up we have CPI from the Swiss CPI tonight, the cash rate tomorrow from the RBA. But then, early Wednesday morning things start to pick up. We have Fed Chair Powell is testifying. That's over 2 days, so there will be a Q&A, and that can lead to some of the big movements. Now, we really do, you don't need any big guesses or prizes for guessing what's going to be some of the questions at the moment. would say it's going to be about rates, it's going to be about inflation, and what their policies and what they're going to do. So I think there has been some talk about the peak interest rate level even being increased. So I think there'll be a lot of questions around how high rates will get in the US, how many more rate rises are going to continue, and just how far they're going to go on the short term or the medium term to try and get inflation back to a level that's deemed appropriate at the moment. So the part one will be on Wednesday morning, and part two will be on Thursday morning. So we also have interest rate decision coming out of Canada, and I think there was some headlines this morning saying that the Bank of Canada may need to do more to stay in touch with the Fed. Otherwise it will open up a bit of a differential between the two. And we also have the JOLTS job openings on Thursday, and we have the ADP non-farm employment change as well on Thursday. So when we have the ADP non-farm, that means non-farm payrolls are coming this week as well. So moving on to that, we also have the last policy statement from outgoing Bank of Japan Governor Kuroda, and we have GDP from the UK as well, and they're looking at 0.1%, so an increase after that minus 0.5%. So will we see small signs of green in the UK? Possibly we will, but if we do see another disappointing data, it will discontinue this to show us how much the struggle is in the UK at the moment. So sorry, I'm just trying to adjust this to make sure there's not too much sun shining onto my face. So moving on, we have the non-farm payroll. So employment data also is due from Canada. They're looking for an increase of 6,000 on the employment change, and unemployment to increase to 5.1. The US data, we're looking for a decrease after that super hot non-farm payroll figure we saw last time, that came in at 517. They're looking for 206,000 this round, and unemployment to be steady at 3.4%, and average earnings to be steady at 0.3%. So I think, again, like last time, it really comes down to what we hear from Fed Chair Powell, and the employment data are going to be the two big keys this week. So for the dollar, and that obviously that knock-on effect it will have with indexes and other currencies. So if we do see another real hot employment figure, we should expect some of the fireworks we saw last time. But I think the market as well will be looking for a bit more certainty out of the Fed, just to see really exactly where they're at. We're hearing different slightly different messages from other members, and then we're hearing slightly different messages from Powell. So maybe some unity, and just exactly where they see inflation is at, and what they're going to do to try and get that under control. And I think the dollar will be looking at that as well. So the dollar itself, we can just see now, it's in a range, it's in a holding pattern, but we still are in this uptrend, and we have this decent level of resistance up here at 105.20, and then we have this minor support down at 104.34. But this trend still remains in play, and we'll be looking to see if there is some good news to push it up to test resistance. But if we do see anything that disappoints, we'll be looking for possibly we could see a bit of a test of this trend if we do see a move down. So the pound as well, with some of that data coming up, we have some nice support here. This short-term support here at 1.1940, and we'll be hoping to see that can continue to hold. It's been in play for a little while now, and if things don't work out for the dollar and start to work out for risk currencies, we have this nice bar here that is an engulfing pattern, and we'd hopefully like to see a bit of a break higher, and maybe just test and see if we can get a breakout of this consolidation to the upside. So that's one there just to keep an eye on. Over to the yen, if anything does come out for the yen this week, again, we saw that this have mini holding patterns with support and resistance on the short term. It's more sideways. And the euro, which had a nice, pretty decent week last week, but until the end of the week when we saw a bit of a pullback, this trend still remains in play. We'll just be looking to see if anything can feed buyer demand again. We'd like to see a test of this area and a break. And for the pound, similar story, another little holding pattern after that nice, push test higher that was faded. But this trend still remains in play, and we'll just see if we can get some further demand to push on. Otherwise, if we do see any new lower highs, we could see a bit of a pullback. But that may come down to if there's any real final surprises coming out of the policy report this week in the press conference from the Bank of Japan. The dollar yen has continued to track higher. We are seeing it in a bit of a consolidation. There is some support and demand at this area, but it really needs to break this area again to get back on track. And gold. So gold last week finished on a real strong note. We've seen this break above both moving averages. This trend now looks like it's being broken out of. I think for gold now, if the dollar plays ball, we want to see a pullback, and if we do see a pullback, a new higher low, and then a new push higher breaking that high, and then we'll be looking at this level here at 1876, 93, just as a test possibly of resistance. So if we can break that area, that would be pretty good to see if there's a test and break there. But I think now we do have a bit of a V pattern as well here, so we're just looking to see if we do have a pullback that it's a higher low, and then we get going once again. Now we're just going to touch on a couple more, and then we'll just have a look at crypto quickly. Now oil had a interesting Friday, so we had a very big drift lower before buyers came back and we fought back. Now even though we are seeing all this movement, oil still remains in this range. We are back here testing this resistance point, which is at that 79.67. We want to see a break of that, and then a move back up to into the 80s, 81.51 resistance, and we do see a break of this resistance. That would be a good sign, and then maybe we can get something going here. But again, oil continues to play range trading, and even if we do get back up here, we have seen a lot of fails there. So I'm not advising anything, but there could even be a play on a resistance play here if the market did fail to get through it, and we could see even a return back to mid-range. But if we do see a break, maybe it could be a bit of a pop, and we could see a test higher from buyers. But there'll be some work to do, as we've seen a lot of attempts here that have failed previously on oil. And finally, we're just going to touch on cryptos. So cryptos are trading lower this morning. We had a bit of a flat weekend after that, that real solid move down after the Silvergate Bank issues really came into focus. So we will see how cryptos fare this week. I think fundamentally there's still a lot of nerves in the market due to Silvergate Bank, and we're just going to have to see if buyers can get over that and get back into the market. But if we even do see another test down, we're hoping to see that we can see a bit of support on Bitcoin around this area here at 21,616, and but there is a little bit of short-term support here at 22,182. But this is our area of issue here. So we have a lot of resistance here at 23,133, and then again up at 23,647. We won't go over all the coins, but we can see there's just a few coins are in this, they're in a similar position after that real strong move down. I think this is trying to work itself out. So it may just come down to confidence, how bad is actually the issue with Silvergate, and how much exposure and issue is really there. I think if it does prove to be a little bit overdone, hopefully we'll see buying come back on track. But if we do see continued worries, and this also comes back to the Fed's policy, if we do see that really favour the US, and they do talk quite hawkish, that could also really hurt cryptos as well this week and put some selling pressure back on. So an interesting week coming up, and definitely the testimony from Chairman Powell, and this week's non-farm payrolls will be the one to watch, and also the Bank of Japan as well will be one to watch. We have seen some interesting movements lately from the Bank of Japan, so that should be one to keep an eye on as well this week. GDP from the UK as well, 0.1 in the positive is an interesting figure, and then also what the RBA has to say this week about their rates plan, and after some of the mixed influences we've seen coming through from the market in terms of data, from the employment data and from last CPI data. So that's it for this morning. Thank you very much for your time. We hope you have a fantastic trading week, and Please feel free to subscribe and check out our guest analysts during the week. And until Friday's weekly wrap, we wish you the best trading. Keep an eye on some of these news pieces and data that's coming out. And until then, thanks and bye for now.